Why, hello there, everyone. I just finished watching Gundam Witch from Mercury episode 9, having watched episode 8 last week. I didn't make a video review for episode 8 last week because, as you would know if you've been keeping up with my community posts on YouTube, aside from me being jealous of Sueta's video editing skills, I didn't have that much to say about episode 8. I didn't think I had enough to merit making an entire video just for that, especially with how long the episode 7 video was. I didn't want to go from having a really long video to having a really short one. So I just decided to save my thoughts from episode 8, and I would just say them at the beginning of this episode and then go into my thoughts on episode 9 in the same video. So starting with episode 8, I think it's funny that Miorine notices how weird the dynamic is between Suletta and her mom. So obviously Mio has already met her mom and kind of knows how weird the mom is, but Mio, seeing the interaction between Suletta and her mother, specifically after Elnora sort of, well, it's not after Elnora betrayed Suletta, but it's after Suletta learns that Elnora was lying to her. Mio was probably expecting there to be some sort of discussion about that, but Suletta pretty much just forgives it or accepts it, right? Because Suletta is obviously blind to how weird Elnora is, for lack of a better term, and I think that freaks Mio out, but she never really said anything about it, but you can tell she's definitely observant of that fact and probably just notes it, right? Sort of just files it away in her brain. And then for the remainder of the episode, this was definitely the most boring episode of all of them so far, because it was pretty much Mio just figuring out how to run this new business, right? And it reminded me a lot of Iron-Blooded Orphans in that it's just a bunch of kids who just recently got a hold of this company. Well, in Iron-Blooded Orphans' case, they basically took over the company, right? And in this case, Mio started a company. But either way, it's this group of kids trying to figure out how to run a company. And not only that, but Mio's relationship with Suletta, well, her dynamic, I should say, was pretty similar to the dynamic between Orga and Mikazuki, in that both Orga and Mio are sort of the mastermind. They're the planner, right? And Suletta and Mikazuki are the people, or like the actual people that do the footwork. I guess you could call Orga and Mio the visionaries in this case, right? Whereas Mikazuki and Suletta are the actual main characters, of course. But the biggest reveal in this episode is that Suletta doesn't recognize Dr. Cardo in that video, which is even more evidence to suggest that Suletta and Eric are different people, right? They could be different people, or at the very least, it means Suletta has some sort of like weird brain damage or something like that, but it's more likely that it's just further confirmation that they are different people. And then at the very end of the episode, they sort of set Shadiq up as a possible antagonist or something along those lines. And so I'll use that to segue into episode 9, because at the start of episode 9, it is when it comes time for Mio to decide if she wants to accept the proposal that Shadiq brought forth, which was introduced at the end of episode 8. And in episode 9, they never really explained the full details of it. So basically, Shadiq, he himself didn't do it, but he had one of his girls in his harem do it. They rewrote some kind of rule. They somehow rewrote some kind of rule which made it so that Mio couldn't have her business anymore. And so then Shadiq comes in. He basically created a problem so he could offer a solution. That sort of classic trick. And so he offered to buy out the company, so that way it could still exist and Mio would still be operating it, but Shadiq would actually own it. I think, again though, like I said, they never actually explained the details of this at the start of episode 9. That's what I was remembering. But I didn't remember exactly what they changed. I couldn't remember explicitly what they actually changed in terms of the rules to make it so that way they couldn't run their business anymore. So I went back to episode 8 because, I had watched it a week before this, so it was possible I just forgot something. But I went back to episode 8 and I just skipped to the end part where Shadiq proposes this. And even at that part, even at the end part of episode 8, in which Shadiq proposes this thing, it never explicitly states what the, I guess it's when they're formulating the plan, but even then, it never explicitly states what they're actually changing in terms of the rules. I would have very much liked to hear the actual language they were using in the changing of the rules. Maybe they said it somewhere in the episode, so if I missed it, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't there, and in that case, that is a critique of mine. I kind of wish they explicitly said what the rule change was and how it was interacting with the other rules, especially when there's not much action going on in episode 8 and the start of episode 9, right? I would like for them to explain the non-action things a bit more instead of just saying something vague like, oh yeah, we changed a rule. Because the details of that seem pretty important when so much of the plot revolves around rules, right? Especially with all the fights thus far being duels, right? Duels are fought under a set of rules. So the rules are pretty important. So I think whenever they talk about a rule or introduce a rule, they should explain it. So anyway, I probably spent too much time talking about that. And at the beginning of episode 9, they're outside sort of lamenting this. Mio's inside talking to Shadiq, right, with Suletta, but the other people are outside, and there's this broken plaque. I didn't understand what that broken plaque was. So again, if someone knows what that was, let me know in the comments, because it was just some broken rock, but I'm assuming it was like some kind of plaque because there was a symbol on it. But anyways, the majority of this episode was actually a team duel, because Mio decided not to accept the proposal just because, Shadiq is shady. So I think that's a pretty good reason to not accept it. And so in the team battle, expectedly, the majority of Mio's team just gets absolutely washed because, as it should be, they lose due to the fact that, well, when I say they lose, I'm talking about the individual people that got washed, not the team. So expectedly, the majority of those team members were just absolutely no challenge for Shadiq's team because Shadiq's team is just way more in practice, right? But it essentially got carried by Suletta because, well, she has the plot armor. But I'm glad that Suletta didn't fully carry it because at the very end, Choo Choo actually pulled off a pretty clutch snipe. So I'm glad that Choo Choo actually did something and it wasn't just Suletta carrying in general. But to be more specific, the way in which she was carrying, at least up until the end, is because the whole plot of this fight is that after the majority of Mio's team gets washed, there's Suletta, and they start to sort of gang up on her. And surprise, they have this special technology that they shouldn't have anymore, apparently. And it essentially just shuts off or jams the Gund format stuff, right? But then Suletta decides to essentially manually override the mobile suit, so that way the Gund format still works. And so it's funny when you phrase it like this, right? Shadiq had a technology to suppress the Gund format, but Suletta in her aerial had some kind of technology to suppress that technology. So it essentially just canceled each other out and did nothing. However, there was a bit of maybe plot importance in that Elnora noticed, because she was watching this fight as it was being live streamed, because one of Mio's terms was that it had to be live streamed because she wanted people to see when they won, so that way their stocks would go up, essentially. What's weird, though, is that Mio made this condition after they had already agreed to duel. So again, I wish they would sort of establish what you can and can't change when it comes to creating duel conditions or stakes and things like that. Like, have an actual time by which you can't change anything. Anyways, though, Elnora was watching it, and she noticed at least I'm assuming she noticed this because it was deliberately framed in the episode, but it seemed as if she noticed that two of the mobile suits in Shadiq's team looked extremely similar to the Bigweir Bu, or whatever it was called, the mobile suit that killed her husband at the very beginning. At least I think it was two of the suits. It was at least one of them. It wasn't the suit Shadiq was actually in. That was the Michalis, I think it was called. But the grunt suits of his looked like the Bigweir Bu, the thing that killed Elnora's husband. So I think that's why it was framed in a way to imply that she noticed its design, right? But as for Shadiq's mobile suit, the Michalis, I actually kind of liked the detachable hand, because the detachable hand with the three fingers I thought was very reminiscent of the Hama Hama from Double Zeta, which is one of my favorite mobile suits in the whole franchise. And I'm pretty sure that was a deliberate reference. Well, not a reference, just, a reminiscent design element, an homage, something like that. Because if it were just a detachable hand, that would be one thing, but it also has those three fingers. So that's what makes me really think it's like the Hama Hama. And then, of course, after Choo Choo snipes the Michalis head off of Shadiq's mobile suit, Suletta comes out and basically does a Fortnite dance on Shadiq. She just emotes on him and does a little promotional dance. I'm assuming that was done to promote the aerial, because I'm sure Suletta must have been informed by Mio. I'm sure Suletta must have known that the whole thing was being live streamed, right? So she was probably told by Mio to do some kind of promotional pitch at the end. So she did the little promotional pitch that she originally made in the video they produced in episode 8. So I thought that was funny. That was probably the highlight. Well, I would say the choo-choo snipe and then the Suletta dance was the highlight, but those were basically together as the same event, right? Because one followed the other immediately. So let me know what you guys thought about that. I am going to watch episode 10 next, like right after recording and posting this. I'm going to watch episode 10 because I need to catch up, because before I watched episode 9 tonight, I was 2 episodes behind, and I need to hurry up and catch up because I want to finish doing and posting the episode 9 and 10 reviews before the Street Fighter 6 beta test comes out, because the Street Fighter 6 beta test comes out on the 16th and it lasts until the 19th. And during that time, I will be just doing nothing but playing that. The reason why obviously I had to wait a week before doing another Gundam Witch for Mercury episode review, because I was saving my thoughts on episode 8. But even then, this is a little late, because I would have liked to post this like as soon as episode 9 got released, but I was getting a little sidetracked with the Gundam Evolution tournament that I was practicing for. I was playing Gundam Evolution every single evening, practicing to be as prepared as possible for the tournament, which was on Saturday, which was yesterday. So that's why I'm recording this now. But anyways, let me know what you guys thought about the episode, and I will see you guys later. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.